I heard through the grapevine, also known as your Instagram, that you're super into comic books. And I just want to hear all about your amazing story and a little bit about the comic that you've written yourself.
I love comics. I love music. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of fan crossover in both those mediums. And I always wish that it would cross over more as one. So I'm like, I just gotta do it.
Do it yourself.
Yeah, and now it's a 6-issue comic series that I wrote and drew. The songs follow the storyline of the comic.
Let's say the name of the issue.
It's called Skin and Earth, the project, issue 1. And seeing it in comic stores like here at Forbidden Planet is like pretty insane. Yeah.
You said that you've been into comics for years now. What first got you into comic books?
When I was very young, I didn't collect comics because I couldn't afford them. Kind of just a kid, but I loved the idea of telling a story with pictures. So I drew comics all the time. I had this character, he was like Monty the Frog was his name. It was a very morbid comic. I think he ended up getting he got killed at the end of every episode.
Poor Monty.
Yeah, but I just loved that idea of storytelling, but with this sort of shock factor to it. I started collecting old space adventures comics like Magnus Robot Fighter, retro space aesthetic, and it made its way into my art at the time. And obviously started collecting Wonder Woman, inspiration in terms of just power and strength. Yeah. And then that started to morph into more specific tastes of comics. I got into indie comics, and I realized comics don't always involve superheroes. There are characters that are flawed and real and dealing with the things that we deal with, maybe on a bigger scale or maybe on a more fantastical scale, but more relatable characters.
So tell us a little bit about your comic, Skin and Earth.
She's not a superhero. She's a real person. She's me in another dimension. The way she deals with things and her reaction to things are very much the way I would respond to things. I started writing this a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
When I started writing music. And when all of the writing was done and the story was fleshed out is when I started doing the art.
I actually wanted to ask you about sort of the difference, or if there was a difference between writing this comic book, writing the lyrics for your song, and what your process was like when you were doing.
Probably the first few hours of a songwriting session are spent trying to figure out what to write about. So I had the story in mind, I had the mood established. I was like, this is the part of the story where these characters meet and there's this mood associated and this is what we need to say. And it was like everything poured out. And because I was able to speak through this other character, which is another side of myself, didn't tell anyone that though, I was able to say things that maybe I wouldn't normally have said. And when you hear the song without ever knowing there's a comic, it works. But when you read of the comic, there's a whole other layer to it.
Say you're trapped on a desert island and you can only read 3 comics for the rest of your stay. What would they be?
Monstrous. So there's only 2 books out right now. Female creators, and the world building is so intricate. The art is unreal. It kind of integrates manga style Japanese art. Another one.
Number 2.
Okay, I'd have to go with Y the Last Man. Every Y chromosome on Earth dies. It shows the social structures that evolve in a world without men. Planes follow the sky because there aren't that many female pilots.
Last one.
It's a Wonder Woman dark tale where she has to go into the underworld and she loses her sight. I think it was the first time as a Wonder Woman fan that I saw her weakened. Ooh. And it brings out these flaws in her and she's forced to rediscover herself.
I think a lot of people think of this industry and when they hear comics, they automatically think Big Bang Theory, boys. Tell me a little bit about what it's like to find other female writers and how you see the industry evolving.
It's definitely evolving towards female creators and female fans. Yeah. Personally, I love a female lead.
Yeah.
In video games, in comics, I think I would way rather it. So most of the comics I read, there's a strong female, relatable character that I'm reading about. As we get more female creators and more female leads, more women are gonna read them. Yeah. Hey, how you guys doing? Did you get the comic?
Yeah, we literally just came to the city in hopes that we'd bump into you.
No way! Well, come to a comic book shop, of course you're gonna find me.
Skydiving is one of my favorite songs of all
really?
time. I was just completely surprised. It was so different than anything you've
Wait
ever
till you hear the
done.
rest of the record.
Everything has been so good and I'm so proud of you and everything that you've done.
Lights, we just ran into 2 of your super fans. What is that experience like for you?
It's the best.
Yeah.
I'm always so appreciative of it after all these years even. If you can keep impressing these fans that even have been around this long, then you're doing something right.
Well, Lights, comic book shopping with you has been absolutely amazing. I feel like I've learned so much. I need to pick up a few comics for myself. Exactly. You have introduced me to the most amazing plug in New York City, Forbidden Planet. Thanks for helping me shop. I appreciate it. Can't wait to read.
Get into it.
I will.